Hey guys, what's going on? Dreaded Wraith here, bringing you part one of a new series that I'm working on, which is going to be a review of all Killer's teachable perks, and then at some point I'm going to be doing a separate video on all the free perks that you get that aren't linked to a Killer. Before I get into this, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and ding that bell button, as it really does help the channel out so much. Okay, diving in for part one of the Killer teachable perks. Today we're going to be looking at the Trapper, the Hillbilly, and the Doctor. Timestamps for each of the Killers and each of the perks will be in the descriptions below if you want to just skip ahead to one of those that you need reviewing. What I will be talking about will be the tier 3 version of each of the perks, but what you'll see on screen will be the tier 1. If anyone's got any questions about any of the perks in today's video, hit me up in the comments and I will definitely reply. So each of the perks are going to be rated between 1 and 5, with 5 being absolutely amazing and 1 being awful, absolute ass. Okay, so first up we have got the Trapper. So we'll move on over to the Trapper. And his first perk is Unnerving Presence. Survivors within your terror radius have a 10% greater chance of triggering skill checks when repairing, healing, or sabotaging, but those skill check success zones are reduced by 60%. So what this means is that newer survivors are really going to struggle hitting those skill check zones, and say a brown medkit, for example, they could miss the skill check, and that means they won't get a full heal. However, against better survivors, they'll be able to hit these smaller skill checks. So overall, I'm going to give this perk a 2 star because I don't think it's that good, and I think there's definitely better perks that you can be running. Okay, moving on to his second perk is Brutal Strength. You can destroy dropped pallets, breakable walls, and damage generators 20% faster. So all in all, this sort of shaves off about half a second, because it takes about 2 seconds to perform a sort of kick dash action of kicking a pallet, a generator, or a wall. So this reduces it down to about sort of 1.5 seconds. It's not the best perk in the world, but you'll definitely get some usage out of it every game. So overall, I'm going to look at this one and give it 3 stars. Because I do believe you will get worth out of it every single game. It's only half a second. So it's not absolutely amazing. And then moving on to the Trapper's final perk is Agitation. So this increases your movement speed by 18% when transporting bodies. And it also increases your terror radius by 12 meters. So this would combo quite well with Unnerving Presence, and it does speed up your movement. So there are other perks you can sort of pair this up with that it will work really well with. But overall, it's not the best perk in the world. There are better options out there. So I'm only going to give this one 2 stars. Okay, moving on to our next killer now will be the Hillbilly. And his first teachable perk is Enduring. Now, this one doesn't have a lot to explain. Basically, when you are hit and stunned with a pallet, the stun is reduced by 50%. This is amazing, works really well with things like Spirit Fury that we'll cover in a future video. And it's just phenomenal. And for this, I'm going to give it 4 stars. Moving on to his second perk now. We have Lightborn. So this grants immunity to blindness caused by flashlights and firecrackers. And survivors attempting to blind you have their auras revealed for 10 seconds. Now, this is great if you end up in a match with 4 flashlights where they're all trying to stun you. But realistically, that's not going to happen every game. So it's not going to see much action, and it is going to be a wasted perk slot a lot of the time. So for that reason and that reason alone, I'm only going to give it 2 stars. And then moving on to the Hillbilly's final perk is Tinkerer. When a generator is repaired to 70%, you receive a loud noise notification and you're granted the undetectable status effect for 16 seconds. This is brilliant. The amount of times that I'll get hits that I wouldn't ordinarily get, or you'll get a sneaky gen grab, or especially with Pyramid Head, you can do a ranged attack and they won't know you're there. If you want to check that out, actually, you can see Tinkerer working in my last video. There'll be a card popping up on the right hand side of your screen now if you want to check that out. And I just think this is a great perk, so for that reason I'm giving it 4 stars. And then what we're now going to do is move on to the final character, the Doctor. And his first teachable perk is Overwhelming Presence. So, Overwhelming Presence, survivors within your terror radius suffer from inefficiency. Affected survivors' items consumption rates are increased by 100%. So it doubles the use when they're in your terror radius. So one of the Trapper's perks that we looked at earlier, Unnerving Presence, which makes skill checks harder, and Agitation, which increases your terror radius when you're carrying a survivor, would pair really well with Overwhelming Presence. However, it's not the best thing in the world. Consumption rates are pretty much only affected when they're within your terror radius, so if somebody gets hit or unhooked outside of your terror radius and runs away, it won't affect them, and for that reason I don't think it's great, so I'll only be giving this 2 stars. Moving on to his second teachable perk is Monitor and Abuse. Monitor and Abuse is when you are in a chase, your terror radius is increased by 8 meters, but when you're not in a chase, it is decreased by 8 meters. This works amazingly on most killers to drop your terror radius from 32 meters down to 24. But what it'll also do is killers like the Huntress, the Hag, that have got a reduced terror radius anyway, and Myers, for example, this makes their terror radius really small, meaning you can creep up on survivors a lot better. It does also have a secondary effect, which it increases your field of view by 10%. That's not, I mean, it's a nice addition, but really here what you want is that reduced terror radius to get behind the survivors without them really knowing and get into chases a lot quicker. And on that, we will be giving that a 4-star rating. And then finally, his last perk is Overcharge. And Overcharge means that when you kick a generator, the next survivor interacting with that generator is faced with a tremendously difficult skill check. Failing that skill check results in an additional 5% loss of progression. Now this skill check's really small, and again, basic survivors who have just started playing the game and who are new, sort of your potatoes, are really going to struggle with this skill check, and it's going to make the gen bang and you're going to know where they are. But experienced survivors will know how to counter this. They will hit that skill check and you won't get much worth out of it. Now, looking at the other perks that we've got, you could pair this one with Unnerving Presence. So when a survivor is within your terror radius, if you've overcharged the generator, say you've used Brutal Strength to kick it quicker, you're using Unnerving Presence to make that skill check happen 10% more often and make the success zone reduced by 60%. You then pair that with Overcharge, that skill check zone is going to be really tiny. That could mess up more experienced survivors, but that's 2 perk slots. So because of the reason that experienced survivors will counter this, I'm only going to give this 2 stars. Let me know what you think down in the comments. If you like these videos, if you enjoyed them, if you think they're good, and if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. So I will be doing licensed killers for my next video. So we'll be looking at the Cannibal, the Shape, and the Pig. Okay guys, see you next time. Thanks for watching.